Hello, folks, and welcome to the first episode of a new show we're doing on A Gallant Few. This is going to be called The Rangers Flashback. This is something that I'd kind of like doing in my own kind of personal time, finding a player from your past that you loved and doing a wee bit of digging into their kind of past, when they came to the club, and even just reminiscing on some of the good times for those players. Today we have Colin, my G, respect. We've got Claudio Caniggia, which I know he's very personal to you, a personal favourite for you. And as I said, this is a show where we're going to get all range of players being discussed. For example, as we've said, Claudio Caniggia, a wee bit before my time, just on the brink of my existence, to be fair, but a hero to some, and especially to yourself, Colin.
Thanks for having me on, Andy. I was really looking forward to this until you said that, you know, you were born after Caniggia played for Rangers. Class. That's the show off to a fire, but no. You've got legendary figures, and then you've kind of got cult heroes, and I think Caniggia definitely is my cult hero. I absolutely adored him at Rangers. Some of the longer term listeners and followers of our content, they'll know that before the Gallant Few, when I was podding on like Heart and Hand and writing for 404 and stuff, my very first page I started was a blog called Caniggia's Hairband, and that's how much I love Claudio Caniggia.
So we'll talk about, it's we kind of it's kind of looking at the CV. That just shows you how football is passed on. Like, I mean, you don't have that in any of these days touching our club at all. I suppose you think about it at the end of his career. I suppose maybe you would find those kind of players signing for us, but it just feels like a different kind of time. Um, you know, talk to me about when we signed Claudio. I mean, you're talking to somebody that we signed from Dundee, which if you were to just look at that previous club, you go, okay, signing from inside the country, very similar to what we were talking about in modern football, signing the best players that Scotland's got to offer. But then you look back a couple of clubs and you go, okay, this isn't just somebody that's rocked up at Dens Park to make a living wage. This is somebody that's been around the block and has had quite a successful career.
Uh, you're right. So in isolation, signing a top player for Dundee, isn't he? Wasn't alien to Rangers. Like, this is when we were getting the best players from inside the league. I mean, that season or the season before, roughly about the time, we're signing guys like Latipi, Kenny Miller. A couple of years later, you start getting Kishnishvili, Nacho Novo, Stephen Thompson signed that around that time as well. So it was natural. I mean, something that Rangers need to do, be doing more nowadays. Somebody's doing well in the league, then you sign them up. I do need to caveat that with the standard of Scottish football was significantly stronger at that point. You had two really excellent Rangers and Celtic sides, and while there was a gap between Rangers, Celtic, and the rest of the pack, it isn't quite as big as what it is now. So it made sense for Rangers to sign for Dundee, but as you said, like taking a step back, how Dundee managed to land Claudio Caniggia, a player of his pedigree, and we're talking in the early 90s, he's in the elite footballer category, absolutely like through the 90s, elite player, and he maybe didn't quite have the fitness when he came to Scotland, but you could still tell his quality was there.
So, as you kind of said, that the quality was there. What was your kind of thoughts when seeing him kind of early, maybe even early days when he's pulled on the shirt for the club? What was were your first thoughts similar to that? How there's the class player there, maybe coming to the end of his time in football, or was it a case of just he's just as good as he was?
Yeah, like so I'm a young boy at this time, and I'm really starting to get the Rangers fever, and I think this is maybe my fourth or fifth season actually watching every game and being in tune with what's happening. Um, my biggest frustration with him was that he couldn't feature regularly. Like, and we do need to be honest about that. Particularly when we got into the second, third season. But when he did first sign, he wasn't a 90 minutes player every week. His impact was McLeish used him so well. A lot of the time he would just play him for 45 minutes. The first 45 minutes, make an impact, then sub it off, and yeah, usually worked out well where the game was done at that point. So yeah, that was, you could tell he was a talent. But this is the Rangers side, Andy, which had Michael Moles, Ronald de Boer. We're getting the emergency peak of Barry Ferguson at this point, and you've got Peter Lovenkrands really starting to, and Avalazi, both of them just starting to get to the peak of their powers. So as an attacking team, we've got so many excellent players, so many excellent options. The biggest compliment I can say about Claudio Caniggia is he did not look out of place. And in actual fact, I think some of the players I mentioned were maybe a wee bit more raw. You could tell he'd been about the block, played at a higher level of football. Him and Ronald de Boer, the way they thought and the way they seen passes and seen runs was just on a different level for everybody else.
From, as I said, sort of not having as much knowledge or memory of the player himself, I said to you before we started, things like Jink Flamboyant is the best way to describe him. I think he might be a bit of a nutter because he played for both River Plate and Boca Juniors. I think these kind of conversations are a fair assessment of the player in the wider footballing kind of mindset and how he kind of lived his footballing career.
Absolutely. Like, long-term listeners will know I appreciate a good-looking football player for Rangers, and copy and paste anything I've said about Yanis Hadji, but I better turn this down in case Kira's in the other room. But Google Claudio Caniggia in the 1990s, and he is like a Greek god. He's a fucking Adonis, right? Him and Maradona in the 90s had the world at their feet, and also Caniggia, he really lived the rock star lifestyle as well. I think he still does in his 50s. I mean, I think his latest girlfriend's younger than you, no doubt. But yeah, he also, that led to him getting banned for the international side for a few years because he was found doping, full of cocaine, all that kind of stuff. So he did really live the rock star lifestyle, and he was starting to calm it down when, by the way, 90s, starting to get his career on track. And I don't think we see as much. Well, I was going to say we don't see as much of that by the time he's at Rangers. Maybe not for Rangers, but he was called up to the Argentina squad for the first time in like 8 years when he signed for Rangers, which is testament to how well he was doing. So he was in the squad for the 2002 World Cup, and he got sent off from the bench. He didn't feature at all in that World Cup. He kicked off in the bench, so he still has that Argentinian nutter in him even by the time he's at Rangers.
I mean, that's just it goes along with everything we were saying. I think flamboyant maybe is the word that I wouldn't have used. I think of something a wee bit stronger, maybe like the type of alcohol he might be a fan of. But talk about, there's a lot of kind of memories there for yourself. What would you say is his kind of best moments for the club? Like on top of, if he said, I'm sure there'll be memories of before seeing him in world football. As you said, he was an elite player, but when his time started at Rangers and for the years he spent, what was your kind of best, like that was his best kind of peak, time at the club?
So there's probably a couple of memories for me, Andy, where and back to the point I made earlier, McLeish used him so well. McLeish knew he couldn't get 90 minutes out of Caniggia often. He couldn't get 2 games in a row often for Caniggia, but what McLeish did do so well is he used them for the big occasions. So you quite often see Caniggia nowhere near near the first 11, and then they just pop up starting in a cup final. So McLeish's first season, we were in a bit of dire straits, and Advocat um, got the sack. McLeish went on to win the cup double, and Caniggia started both cup finals. Also in the Scottish Cup final, he ran the Celtic defence ragged, but got injured after 20 minutes, which was a shame. But eventually Rangers do go on and win, so happy days. In the League Cup final, however, he gets the opening goal, getting on the back post from Olivencran's cross, and that's getting a goal against Celtic. It's always a good it's always a good start. Sorry, I should say that was the second season. I'm getting my cup finals mixed up. Aye, so in McLeish's first 6 months, we got to 2 cup finals, got injured in the Scottish Cup final. The League Cup final that year was actually against Ayr United. Caniggia scored 2, right? So straight away, comes out of the blue, scores 2. The year after, we're playing Celtic in the League Cup final, and that's where he opens the scoring. And again, I think he only plays maybe about 60 minutes. It's all you really needed for him to make an impact. My favourite memory and one of my favourite days watching football, and I think me and Mason are actually talking about doing a 59-part special on the 2002-2003 season, because we both love it so much. But the last day of the season, Andy, you've probably heard about it time and time again, where last day of the season, Rangers and Celtic are both level on points. Celtic are away to Kilmarnock, Rangers at home to Dunfermline, and if both teams win, it's got to come down to goal difference. Caniggia hadn't played in about 4 or 5 games, and he comes into the starting lineup. Again, that's just testament to impact, and he is phenomenal in that first half. Amongst other players, I must say, like a lot of big players turned up, but the first goal, back to what I was saying earlier, where him and Ronald de Boer just had an understanding. Like both their legs had when the bodies couldn't quite do what they could do in the 90s, but the footballing brain between both of them, the way the build-up play leading to Michael Mole's goal, amazing. Caniggia actually gets a goal himself. I think Dunfermline make it 1 each, and then Caniggia puts us back in front. And again, I'm saying his legs under there. He was quick, he was pacey. He just couldn't do it for quite often. But that first 45 minutes of the Dunfermline game, like he helped set that tone. And eventually, in the second half, Rangers go on to win 6-1 and win the league.
I mean, there you go. That's Rangers memories that involve winning a league title. That's it's a beautiful feeling. Beautiful to talk about. Kind of we'll go kind of talk about that kind of trophy haul then. Rangers win that league title. As you said before, Advocat leaves. It's a bit of the kind of post-Advocat hangover, I suppose. But McLeish gets a cup double. And then so that's the league, and one Scottish Cup, one League Cup, and then another Scottish Cup and another League Cup. For the time he spent at the club, and given where we kind of were at that kind of time, as I said, post-Advocat era, it's a bit of a fair assessment, as you'd say, for he kind of did all he could in terms of, shows your medals, kind of that classic debate of shows your medals.
Ultimately, that is going to be one of the key measures of success for any footballer, isn't it? When we're looking at him 20 years after he retired, 5 trophies, 5 medals in 2 seasons. That's not bad going. Not a lot of players will get that percentage. There's a lot better players in Claudio Caniggia who spend time at a club for 2 years and not get that trophy haul. But even looking at Claudio Caniggia himself, probably his most successful period was maybe not successful period, but probably his most when he was at the peak of his powers after like all the dust scandals, probably at Atalanta, and he didn't. I don't even think he won anything at Atalanta. He got a runner-up medal for Roma, I'm sure. So we're talking about his real success was for River Plate in the 80s, and then he doesn't really get that again until he comes to Rangers. So don't know, there's something quite poetic about that. You know, we all love a comeback or an underdog story, and this is a real comeback. Like 20 years after getting all your trophy haul, and then he gets 5 in 2 years.
I suppose it's exactly what we wanted from a Rangers standpoint. Is your job at Rangers is to win trophies, and as you talked earlier about how the teams in the old firm have changed over time and how good both sets of teams were at that point in time. You know, it shows even more how effective he was as a player and how the teams worked, and as you said, how McLeish would have got him to play. It's a testament given how good the opposition were. You're talking about someone, for Argentina, he won a Copa America, Confederations Cup, and he was a World Cup runner-up. You don't get that at Dundee these days. You certainly don't get that in Dundee. And I think you're probably fair to say you don't get that at Rangers these days either. You don't.
Uh,
You struggle to get anyone with that kind of international pedigree anywhere near an affordable wage to join Rangers. It's just. I suppose you could do a whole other series on those three magic letters, EBT. But it's just a testament to that time period at Rangers where, and I suppose for Scottish football as a whole, where that type of player, granted, as we said, towards the end of his career, has landed in our country.
I mean, the mental thing about this is at a period when Rangers are starting to rein in the spending a wee bit.
Mm.
If we look at the late 90s where we're signing Dutch superstars. We signed Ronald de Boer from Barcelona. We outbid Man U to get Ronald de Boer, who was quite a big player for Barcelona. But this is us reining it in. You're right. The landscape has absolutely changed in Scottish football, and those days are well gone. I'm afraid. I mean, the probably the closest we've got in recent years is getting Aaron Ramsey on a loan deal. I'm just thinking of somebody who had a decent career and played at the top level previously. All we could really do is muster up and paying a tenth of his wages for 6 months. But again, football's just changed so much, Scottish football and world football. We won't be getting very many World Cup runner-ups in the near future, I don't think.
Yeah, we've been left in the dust almost as soon as that Premier League TV deal for down south kicked into place, and you're getting parachute payments of 80 million and stuff like that. I mean, it's just a forgotten age of Scottish football being not just sponsored by Caramel Tunnock's wafers and stuff like that, and actually being being something that companies care about. But I suppose this is the beauty of this kind of show and this kind of series is that we're going back to these time periods where you know these things were possible and not just going forward. I'll tell you straight away, I will not be doing any flashback shows for Nicky Laws or Ian Blacks or Rob Kiernan's. That's not what this show's for. This show's for the standouts from eras past. So
This is a flashback show. Those
yeah,
players you mentioned will feature them in the PTSD show. Which,
yeah, oh
if we run out
definitely
of ideas, it will do.
the Gallant Few counselling series. Yeah, just have a whole episode on those kind of post 2012 McCoy's teams. But hey ho, that's we were enjoying ourselves there. Now we've just landed ourselves back in the land of depression almost. But yes, as I said, this is what this show's about. Finding these players that are personal to Colin, and there'll be myself on there, David Tomlinson, and some of the other listeners, or some of the other podders, I'm sure would be happy to bring out some players from their past who have a spot in their heart. But yes, as we said, this is episode 1. We'll have some more episodes coming out soon. You'll find them on our Patreon and on our members page. So wherever you found this one, keep an eye on it, and you'll have more coming soon. But for now, I suppose I will leave you again to touch on your favourite memory from Claudio Caniggia, and just how you want to finish on a high with, maybe not the best way of describing Claudio Caniggia on a high, I suppose. But yeah, sure.
Really not.
Give your finishing thoughts on the man.
My finishing thoughts are, I think he is somebody who, while we speak about in the early 90s, he's in that elite category. He's definitely not went on to have a career which he should have had. So somebody for his ability for both, for his club career and particularly his country, he could have done great things. Just now look at any highlights, say Italia 90, and he was the main man for Argentina. But for a Rangers standpoint, like cult hero, absolutely. Not, I mean, we speak about players contributing and being available. This guy wasn't available all the time, but when he did, like he really stepped up in the big moments. And my favorite moment is for Claudio Caniggia is him getting that second goal against Dunfermline in the 2003 deciding day. He was just excellent for 45 minutes, and that was Claudio Caniggia. He didn't play often, but when he did, you knew he was on the park. You knew he was going to deliver. And that's why he was brought out for the big occasion. So him getting that goal, him being involved in that first goal as well, he really did help set the scene for how that day was going to go. And I am forever thankful for his contribution.
I think that's fair enough to end on. It's a cult hero, as you've said, and someone that's very close to your heart. So, yeah, I think that's a perfect way to end our show today. Thanks for listening, and I said keep an eye on on the platforms, and new episodes will be coming out very soon. So until then, thank you very much for listening. I thank you to my guest on this occasion, Colin, and we'll see you when we make some more of these, because I'm really into this kind of thing. So long may it continue. So until then, thank you very much for listening.